So I guess we can start. Before I start, I guess I want to mention some related to the exam, because some of you asked what might be the question that you might face in the exam. So I put that on the blackboard, which is sample question for the exam. So the way we try to ask is like a micro case, give you what the real world application. In this case, I talk about the housing price in Shenzhen and the housing and the stock market there and how they're related. And you can look at the figure, it looks like this. Probably everyone knows, right? The Shenzhen housing market, right? Is the red and the blue one, right? It's not like this. And if you try to look at the Shenzhen, the stock in market also look like the same shape, okay? And then we're trying to see, using microeconomic theory, you can try to give a story why they have to share the same pattern there. Is there anything that you learn from the topic 1 and 2 can be applied there, right? In particular, we're asking question like this, right? Is it they have the same relationship that they go up and down? And is there any causal relationship between them? From your theory you learn, right? And in particular, we try to link you to the wealth effect or the income effect. Or if that's the case, do you think there's a normal good or not? Okay? And where does it come from? Is it related to the wealth effect from the house, or the other way around, or the IPO? Right? The IPO lead to people have more money, or other way around, right? So, or people are more wealthy, they buy more IPO. Okay, so there's a question we're asking. So this is the type of question that we will be asking you in the exam. So applying what we learn, give you some data there, and some data there, and then you try to answer them. Okay. Of course, you probably ask, is there any model answer? Basically, we don't have a model answer, but there's something right or wrong depending on analysis. Right? Look at your analysis. Of course, we will be giving you our suggested solution after the New Year break, and then you see. Okay. You can see whether you are happy with this, and then of course, if you need more sample question, then we can try to offer, but then let me know whether it's sufficient. But you can see the style is like this. Okay. Hopefully that would convince you that we are not math class. Okay. This is the style. I mean, the multiple choice will be the thing that you with the quiz, right? And this is the question, the long question we are asking. Of course, in our class, a lot of math, but the math is just to make the argument. Okay. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about is our next week arrangement as well, right? I guess you know next week we will be we have your presentation, right? Then it will be depend on which group you're presenting, right? 2 groups will present 1 case. Yes. Your question. Next week. I mean next week is the after the Chinese New Year. Sorry, next week, right? And the two group will do 1 case, right? So we will do 4 group next week. Probably you have been assigned it. And then you look at each case, have 5 questions, right? And we will randomly choose who will be represent for the first half, which for the second half. So you expect to present like 25 minutes, including Q&A. Okay? And then, yes?
The 25 minutes, both groups combined, or one group?
One group, 25 minutes.
Okay, one group, 25 minutes.
Right, one group, 25 minutes. Okay? Including Q&A. So you're expecting like 20 minutes of, yes? So 5 questions would be, we will, as we said here, what we will do on that day, okay, which is similar to other section, is we will have 2 groups for 1 case, right? And then at that time, the TA will tell you you're doing the first half or second half. So you prepare 5 questions, but we will just, yes? I think the first question we don't need to present, right? Right? Because first question is just telling what it is, right? We can just very quickly go. We assume everyone will read the case, right? So I assume everyone will read the case, right? By standard. Well, if only, I mean, the thing is, if only one speed, then if you do not very well, then everyone says the same score. Right? Take the risk. Right? If everyone says something, then we can give grade somehow, right? So it's up to your choice, right? But everyone must be present there, must be there. Need not present, right? Need not present, but I would say yes. So you have 20 minutes for each group, 20 to 25 minutes for each group. So maybe 10 minutes for each question, right? So you present 2, because you are presenting 2 questions, right? Right? So, or 3, the first question, very quickly, right? Just tell what it is and then go to, right? So with one group will be doing question 1, 2, 3, and the other will be 4 and 5. Okay? So, so to be fair, so we would like you to submit your hard copy to the TA before you present, because otherwise, I mean, people will say you copy each other, right? So just to be fair, you just send it to the TA. Of course, if you to the blackboard, submit the blackboard, then it will be fine. Okay? I mean, just similar to other class. So I just follow what's been there. Okay? If any question, just email TA or us, make sure that you are clear, okay? So make sure you prepare all 5 questions, because we'll randomly draw, whether you do first 3 or the last 2, okay? Is that clear? Any question before we continue? Any question? You can just ask. The PPT we just bring there is fine, but the report you just submit before the class, because we see the other group presenting, right? So just to be fair, we just submit it before you present. Before you present, okay? Because otherwise, you see other group, then you will say, okay, the group is very similar, then, right? That's not very good. So make sure it's independent. That's it. Is any question? Any question? If any question, you can ask me during the break. Okay? Any question? So the goal of today is to try to cover, I mean, we'll be able to cover this. Okay? We'll talk about goal theory and the standard macro theory. And then if you have time, we talk about the next topic, okay? You look at the modern macro economics. Basically, you will see divided into 2 big parts. One part is related to the growth, okay? Explain whether in the long run, how the economy would go. That's one part. The other part is talk about short run, which is why the economy fluctuate, why we have recession, why we have boom. It's talking about within 10 years. Growth is in the magnitude of 10, 20, 30 years, the long run. Okay? It's more like, if you talk about investment, it's like value investing or long-term fundamental investment, right? And that's, if you look at this horizon, this is the classical macro that we're looking at, right? You look about short run, and then you talk about technical analysis, that kind of idea, okay? I hope that would try to making sense of what we are doing. Okay? And let's quickly review what we have done last time, right? So basically, macro studying how the economy works, right? And these are the main variable we're looking at, right? Looking at output and the price level, right? It's just standard argument of this, right? If we learn topic 1, right, we have a demand and supply, right? Price and quantity, right? This is the framework that we learn for a particular market, right? And in macro, we're trying to reproduce this, but we're looking at the aggregate idea, adding up the whole economy, right? Then the Q will be just what? It's just GDP, right? This is just GDP, right? And of course, the price level is this, will be the price level, right? Will be the CPI, those things, right? So everything what we learn in the micro actually exactly correspond to the macro. Of course, the force behind macro and micro is slightly different because macro is so many markets combined together, right? So there's the working of the inside within people will be much more complicated, but the generic idea is the same, okay? At least in the long run, we're very similar. In the short run, things can be more complicated. And this is the market we call GDP, right? We try to understand this. And beside the overall economy, and for macro, we will care about two important markets. And one market is money market, where probably while you're here, you're a master of finance student, right? The money market is very important, right? The money market is still price and quantity, but money market is trading money, right? So the price for money is actually called interest rate, right? And quantity money is money demand or money supply, right? The stock of money, right? So basically, still this P and Q, right? And the other thing that which is also very important in the macro is the labor market, right? And labor market is still P and Q, right? P will be the wage rate, Q will be the employment, right? And why you care about money and labor, right? Because that is the one thing we care, right? Many of us actually earn living by wage or money market, interest rate, right? Interest rate at the end related to the stock market overall, right? Because everything is closely related one another. So basically, why we have to learn macro, and we learn from the previous classes using the consumption cap model, right? What we said is macro is finance, finance is macro. That's how they are related, right? Because consumption, right? In the future, and discount factor, all these things, substitution, will related to the pricing today, right? Because why a stock would worth this price, right? Because the stock is a claim to the future profit or the dividend of the company, right? And how the future dividend will be valued depend on how you valued it and how large the dividend is the economy in the future. So everything is related to the macro in that sense. Is that clear what we're doing? Okay? So I'm pretty sure that you guys are practitioner. You know much better than I do about how economy works, but I just know better is academic framework to put everything together. Okay? So basically what I'm trying to tell is not tell about how it works, but I'm trying to give you the framework that can tell people, right? And to understand using a graph to explain to people why it works in this way. I'm pretty sure that you have intuition that's right about how economic works, right? But just give the framework, right? To tell you how it looks like, right? And of course, you see these days in Hong Kong, many people can forecast stock market very well, right? But they don't use economics language. They use fortune teller language, right? They will tell you because of this year is dragon, right? I remember, right? Right? And then we have the ninth fortune, 第九運啲條願, right? This is the way, and then they talk about the rabbit, the whatever, and behind, if you think it's similar to this kind of stuff, right? But the frame is a little bit different, right? They use their astrology and thing, but we use other way to tell the story, okay? Hopefully that we will tell this story is a little bit more consistent than there, but they also have their own system, okay? So let's quickly get into the model. Just last time we learned the circular flow, right? This is the model that we try to understand. The macro is the output, right? We need to know how to measure the output and how to decompose it, and that is the framework that we analysis, right? And this circular flow is involve, just quickly, the goods and service, the real flow, the labor, the capital, go to the firm, that's the real. And when you buy good, the money you pay for the firm is expenditure, right? The money you get is income. And that is how you can calculate the GDP, right? Because the size of the flow is the GDP, right? Usually you look at expenditure, or you look at the output, or look at income, right? These are the three ways. You may ask why labor cannot be measured, but you can, right? You work 10 hours, then the market value of that is not very clear, right? You can measure, you put in 10 hours, you put in 5 hours, but add up doesn't really make sense, but look at the income will be more, you can add up there. So that's why, although we have 4 lines there, but only 3 of them we use to calculate GDP, right? And if you look at the goods and service, that's called output approach, right? Look at the total product produced, and in the market, that is the output approach, right? And the expenditure approach, let me look at the formula because that would be easier to say. Okay. The expenditure model, usually you would often see this formula, right? The GDP consists of 4 parts: consumption, investment, government expenditure, and net export. I think we go about this last time, but worth going again, because if you learn undergrad, you will see this very formula that is very familiar, but this is the standard that how we, probably you would do as well, how we would do analysis, right? And when we look at the economy, how well they work, look at whether the consumption is growing, income is growing, investment is growing, government is growing up, or expenditure, right? Look at what happened, probably look at the GDP composition, right? When you want to forecast the future, look at whether anything would grow, right? And then if you try to look at people, especially the Western people, are actually now very pessimistic about the Chinese GDP, right? And if you just say about that, then you have to support by the composition, right? That people would say, well, the consumption in China is actually going down, right? Look at all the shops there, don't have business, and many of them have no business, and many of the online stores also don't do very well with this consumption, right? About investment, look at whether more capital invest, right? Is the many factory built, right? Is it more roads, more subways, more highway to grow, right? Because you can see many highways already there has been built. Can you build more highways? Can you have more subways? Can you have more roads? Can you have more buildings? Do we have more investment, right? And not government. Is Chinese government spending more money or less? Is the physical budget is going up or going down, right? Then export. Is it China going to export more goods to the Western world or not? Is it the supply chain is going to move out of China or move into China, right? But based on this, and then you can ask which of the following will go up or go down, right? If you want to say, if you want to paint a rosy picture about economy, you should be able to tell which part is going up, right? But of course, we know now is this seems not working, this is not working, this is not working. So this is the classical free engine for the Chinese economy, right? So none of them work very well. So what happened is this guy, right? We know C is going to be the thing that now the Chinese government is focusing on, right? It's called the internal cycle, 内循环, right? The internal cycle, right? It's going by itself, right? People spend money and try to do it. And then the question would be, if this is the future engine of the Chinese economy, then to ask ourselves, is it going to be the case? Okay, so then you can tell whether this is the case or not. And the other thing look at this is, instead of looking at the output decomposition, look at the income decomposition, right? The output must be wage, people who get wage times the labor, interest rate times capital plus the firm's profit, right? This must be one of them, right? So we can ask ourselves, is the people, the worker, say, look at the Chinese economy, is the worker in people earning more wages? More people get higher or less people get higher? Okay, that's the first question. Capital, okay? Is the interest rate in China go up or go down? Is the capital going, more capital go in or more go out? Okay, the profit. Is the profit of the firms goes up or go down? Look at the public corporation. Look at the stock that listed in the A shares. Okay, their profit go up or go down? Okay, by looking at this, you know whether the economy is going to good or bad, right? And of course, you ask why we care about this, right? Again, the CCAP will tell you, right? This is the consumption, right, at the end, right? So you look at, if this is not going up, then this is not going to be good, right? But do remind you that from the CCAP, okay, if the income to be bad in the future, it doesn't mean the stock price go down directly, right? If you remember, the formula we learned is P equal to expected AMX, right? So this is the discount equation, right? And we say the economy is bad in the future, means that this guy likely to go down, right? X going to go down with it because this discount cash flow, right? X is the future cash flow of your investment. But the very important part is M. M, right? If you remember what M is the beta, how patient you are, marginal utility of the future over marginal utility of today, right? So look at how that's called the intertemporal substitution, right? But if you tomorrow getting less money, this goes up, right? Because this today is fixed. Right? The marginal utility and the consumption are inversely related, right? Tomorrow you have less money, then $1 worth more, right? Especially bond would worth more, right? In that case, right? So which would be which depends, right? But if for bonds, if the bonds is not going to default, right? X is not going to change, right? What change is this guy? So bonds in the recession would worth more, right? Of course, the stock then can depends, right? Because this goes down, this goes up, so it depends on what it looks like. I mean, it depends on how you think, but that would be the model. Okay. Now, the other one is called the factor approach, right? Factor approach is look at the income of the approach you're saying. So that's the same, right? is that okay that we know how to analyze the GDP, right? Because that's the standard way that we do look at people, how to analyze, right? You would do decomposition, right? So that is the way that how economists do analysis. It's not like the stock analysis, give you the big picture, right? Instead, as an economist, what you should do, you should divide things into multiple small components and argue one by one, right? That is how we do. We try to analyze, we try to break down the component into very small part, and each part I support argument from there. Well, of course, you would ask how actually you do when you actually for economists would do, they will actually give numbers from the data and feed in the equation and give you the result. Even Excel spreadsheet will solve it. But in our class, because we're not focusing on math, I just give you the idea. But there are many Excel spreadsheets there can tell you how to predict the future of the economy. Okay. Now, the next thing is we finish the output, right? The GDP. One thing we want to talk about money, and we don't talk about money in microeconomics. One of the reasons why is what we call classical dichotomy. I think it started by the philosopher in the 1600s, David Hume. So what they think is, in the long run, okay, money has no impact. Okay, and what they said, the money doesn't matter. Okay, so probably none of you would believe that, but in the short run, of course, the Federal Reserve would have some role in the economy. But in the long run, the classical economists argue that the Fed will be useless. In the short run, the Fed print more money, probably people will spend more, right? But in the long run, people will not be that stupid, okay? Then they will understand the adjustment. Printing more money will not boost the economy. Why? Because in the long run, the Fed print more money, then people would think that the money they have in the pocket actually have less purchasing power, right? And they will adjust their behavior according to the new printed money, and everything will be the same, right? If there's no underlying change in the economy, printing money has no impact at all. Okay? Of course, in the short run, things can be different, but in the long run, printing more money, printing less money has no impact. Okay? So that is what the classical say. That's what they call money neutrality. Okay? In the long run, printing more or less has no particular impact. Of course, short run is yes, but the long run has no impact. Okay? So that is the thing they call no money illusion. What it means is printing more money in the long run should not affect our wage rate, right? Suppose the government add a zero in a note, okay? $100 become $1,000. What happens is in the long run that we will demand our wages add a zero to our wages. Every price will add a zero there. Okay? So everything is multiplied by 10. Right? So nothing will happen. Right? Or that happen like when a country has hyperinflation, right? Usually the country would say cut 0 from that. Right? And then people work as like before, right? That happened in Venezuela, right? Now the hyperinflation, right? They reduce 0 for 3 times already, right? But still no use. But that is the meaning of the classical dichotomy. So now let us define what's money. I mean, money in economists would define as things that we can use for trade. Okay? It's more than banknotes, right? Banknote, of course, you can trade, right? And anything we can use it readily. So important is readily. Okay? So you talk about house. House is not money because house cannot transform into money quickly. Okay? Stock is not so money, right? You need to trade before you can transact, right? Or foreign currency is not considered to be money because you need to exchange before you can do it. Okay? You cannot immediately do it, then it's not money. Okay, of course, it's very narrow sense, right? Then probably you would say Bitcoin might or might not be, depend on scenario, right? If the country or the system accept cryptocurrency, then yes, right? But if the country doesn't accept, it's not. So it really depends on its validity. Okay? So that means that if your money in the payment system, right? Pay now or whatever, Pay Me or WeChat, right? Or Alipay, right? And those are credit, right? And this credit are validly accepted for transaction, then the yes, right? Octopus, right? Is Octopus considered money? I would say more or less or yes, right? Because Octopus you can basically do it, right? But Hong Kong Monetary Authority don't consider Octopus is part of the money. One reason is too small anyway, right? But they should be counted if you are according to this formula. Okay? And I don't want to go to detail, but just a little bit about what's the function of money, right? And why I talk about this is because this is the idea related to Bitcoin, right? We can ask ourselves, is Bitcoin money? We'll be asking ourselves, is Bitcoin satisfy all these 4 essential criteria for money? Okay? First, is this storage of value? Means that if I don't use the Bitcoin today, is it going to be value the same tomorrow? Or at least not too much loss of value, right? Bank note, yes, right? A lot of things is yes, then it's a storage of value, is the money, the first row. Is it Bitcoin to be storage value? Is it going to be stable? Is it going to, tomorrow, the Bitcoin can be go to zero or not? Ask yourself. If yes, then yes. If no, then no. Second, unit of account, okay? And money is convenient to recall everything by that, right? So this product is worth $10 or $20, right? Then it's unit of account, right? In prison, right? Sometimes cigarette is used as unit of account, right? This would be worth 10 cigarettes, this would worth 20 cigarettes, because in the prison they don't have money, right? Yeah, cigarette is money, yeah, cigarette is money, right? So that would be the unit of account. And the third one is the most important, right? The medium of exchange, right? Is the money that is used to smooth the transaction, right? Because if 2 guys want to trade, right? If there's no money, they have to, I want what you have, and you want what I have, then you can trade, right? Otherwise, this is very difficult, right? Without money, making trade very difficult, right? That's why you can see why marriage market is so difficult, right? Because a man have to find a woman that love him, right? Or at least love what he has, right? And the woman have to find a man, right, that the same, right? And you can't easily use the money to solve this problem directly, right? There's some transaction, right? It's not a middleman there, right? So that's why money solves the problem in normal transaction, right? I talk to the farmer to buy a rice. I don't need to provide them a lecture, right? Maybe he don't like econ lecture anyway, right? So I just need to pay them money, then it's done. And last one is the standard deferred payment. What it means is the finance problem, right? Money is useful because if I don't want to settle the bill now, right? We can agree in the future we settle by this much in the future, right? It's a credit system, right? So this is basically finance, right? Money is used at the account for the finance, right? So basically, this is the idea. And if you think Bitcoin is fine, then it's fine, right? You say Bitcoin used to say, I try to buy something, I pay you free Bitcoin tomorrow. Is it acceptable? If yes, then yes. If not, then it's not. Right? So that is the idea. So you can ask yourself whether Bitcoin satisfies this. If not, then it's not. Okay? Is that okay? And probably things like now these days very common is called the central bank digital currency. All right? So you ask ourselves whether all this will be satisfied. Right? So Now, as a form of money, the classical one in the old days, we know gold and silver, they are the money that is what we call commodity money. Itself has some value by itself, right? Gold and silver can be used in industry, right? Or gold at least, some consumption value, right? People like to wear golds, right? But you ask yourself, we have gold and silver, right? Why diamond is not? Right? Diamond can be used in industry, right? Ask ourselves why diamond is not used as money. Why? Anyone want to comment on that part? Why? What is so essential that diamond is different from silver and gold? Scarcity. Yeah, one consensus, and yeah, that is one of the very important one. It's difficult to separate. Then making the unit of account is a little bit different. But I mean, many of you mentioned the very right. But one of those is very important. Is you cannot decompose compared to gold and silver, because it's silver metal. You can melt and can make it smaller portion, and also this scarcity. Because of diamond is very scarce and it's not very homogeneous. So that's why making people to verify is very difficult. Okay? But that is a very good attempt. And the next one is fiat money. What is fiat money? Is the government say this is money, and what is the value there is their gun. Okay? They have the gun. They have power. This is money, and this is money. That's it. Okay? And that is exactly what it is, right? Because the money is supported by the law, and law is supported by the gun. Okay? And that's it. Okay? And government say this is money, that's money. Okay? And the next one, as we learned last time, is we want to do away with the government. Right? So that's called the cryptocurrency. No government and no interest rate value. Okay? And you ask, why we think there's a value there for the cryptocurrency or the Bitcoin, right? It's called the game. Everyone thinks there's a money worth it, and it's worth it, right? No need for government. If we think it's valuable, everyone thinks it's valuable, we believe in it, we behave as if like this, then that's it. Okay? We don't need the gun to support it, right? But usually we say the fiat money is because of the fundamentals are the guns, right? And probably everyone knows, right? Why US money is so stable is because the aircraft carrier everywhere in the world, right? Why you're so strong? Because you can settle any financial transaction with the US money. And why? Because they have gun, right? And that's it, right? Money creation. I want to very quickly talk about this because this is something that I want to explain a little bit. Because that is a fundamental thing about the monetary policy, right? And the bank can have their printing machine, right? Can print as much as they want, right? But it doesn't end there, right? And because of the way that we define money is including deposit or checking account, okay? So that's why when we have the fractional reserve system, I think everyone knows it, is if you put money in the bank don't have to put all the money there in the safe. They can lend some money out, the fraction of that. They keep the fraction, and some money is go out, okay? And that's the new money created, right? Because the money I save in the bank, in the checking account is the money, right? And the bank lend it out, so someone to do business, right? And that create it, right? And that create a lot of money, right? And also create a wealth, right? I think one would know the story of the evergreen, right? I mean, they start with $3 billion, right? And they end up more than $2,000 billion of debt, right? I mean, of course, they go almost goes to bankrupt anyway, but you can see they can multiply a lot, right? So financial sector or the banking sector is very important to make the economy grow, right? So that's why in modern financial economics or macro, they will call this is the financial sector is a multiplier, right? And that explains why you can see the GDP fluctuate a little bit, right? But the financial market can fluctuate a lot, right? One of the reasons is the idea is something like this. Because the bank would multiply everything quickly, right? Because when the economy grows, right, many people would borrow, right, do business, and the bank can create a lot of money. And because people have a lot of money, people keep buying, and the good outcome goes up, right? That's like when we learned last time platform, right? Everyone go, everyone spend, and keep going, right? In the bad case, if everyone don't spend, and then it's shrinking. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, that's the money. The Federal Reserve System. And these are the three measures probably everyone would know is how you define money. I think this is a standard. Money is in the classical central bank idea is currency plus deposit. Okay, but whether you believe this is the right thing, so we add cryptocurrency, is up to your choice. Okay, but I talk about the classical way. Okay, I think we should rewrite this equation 10 years later. But now central banks still don't accept cryptocurrency, right? Or other banking or other digital money system, right? But the simple one, M0 is note plus con. M1 is add this M0 plus checking account, saving account. M2 plus time deposit. Usually we focus on M2, right? It's the money that you look at, and we care about those, right? And the central bank only control M0, right? M2 has no control. It look at how economy looks like, how people believe the future, right? And M2 will be affecting a lot of stuff, right? Because the money market, right? Remember demand supply, right? If the money supply is more, the interest rate will go down, right? I think I don't need to explain this, right? But just P and Q, right? Will be the money. This is interest rate, right? This is the demand and the supply. Supply minus supply, right? Money supply goes up, then interest rate go down, right? I think this is something you learn, right? I don't need to repeat, but you can see when the central bank print more money, right? Then they just print up to here, right? But the money creation process will drift a little bit more and more, then the interest rate will further go down, right? So that's why the central bank is very powerful, right? By controlling M0, right? Then he will able to change M2, right? And M2 actually is the thing that affects the whole economy, right? This money supply would affect the interest rate, right? And interest rate would affect how firms are investing in the future, right? Because firms invest in the future, look at interest rate, right? Interest rate is today's money versus tomorrow's money, right? Investment, looking at this, whether you do investment, look at this interest rate, right? That's how the central bank adjusts this. Okay? And before break, I want to talk about this equation we call the quantity equation. Okay? If you learn macro in the before Keynes, okay? I mean, probably before 1950, 1940, 1930, this is what economists believe. It's what we call money equation. It's very simple, M equal to PT. Okay? So PT is the price level times how many transactions you got, how many trade you got. Okay? And in general, we can't say how many transactions you do. So usually we replace T by Y. So this is the total money value of the product you produce in the economy would be equal to, right, how much you transact, right? The money stock you have, money supply, times how fast the money circulates in the economy, right? So that will be the central formula for the quantity equation. And let me end with this slide with break. This is called the quantity theory of money. These people would believe this hold in the long run. Okay, I repeat, this is formula is not holding in the short run. The long run formula is in general how money circulates in the economy is fixed. Look at the data. I think it's like, remember, depending on economy, sometimes 5 or 6, sometimes 10, depending on how fast the economy goes. Okay, means this money is like $100. Okay, I spend it, go to the shop owner. Okay, the shop owner may spend it again, right, the 2 times, and to spend in the restaurant, right, 2 times. The restaurant owner can go to somewhere else to buy something, okay, pay his bill, okay, for say education, give me, right, maybe cycle, whole economy. That will be the how fast do we, okay, and look at this equation, right, because the product, so percentage change in M plus percentage change in V equal to percent P and percentage change in Y, right? So that is simple. And as he said, in general, how fast the money grows in the economy is more or less fixed, right? Because how quickly you can spend money is something like more or less fixed, right? Of course, these days with online shop, that this will be a little faster, but in general, this is not affected by economy, how fast we consume things, right? So that's why this is the fundamental equation in the long run. How fast your money grows, okay, only lead to 2 things, right? Is the price and the output, right? And in the classical economists would think, in the long run, your output is not going to change, right? You see, because output, later we'll see, at the second half of the class, we talk about output determined by the technology of the economy, right? How many capital you have, how many labor you have, right? So these things are not changed by the government, right? Not affected by the policy of the government or how it looks like, okay? This is more or less not changing, okay? Or maybe you can change with, you can predict it, okay? Later we'll see. We'll look at the solo growth model to understand this part, okay? So that means that's what I said at the beginning. How fast you print the money, how fast your inflation will go. Okay? Okay. So, I mean, okay, before I break, I want to mention one idea, right? Probably you would say, okay, is there any situation where money grows as fast as the price level? One thing that we all very familiar, one thing is housing price in China. If you look at growth rate of housing price in China, actually you would track very well for how the M2 is growing. Okay? So one would say, not me, okay? One would say, okay, there's no growth in housing price in China. Only money depreciate. Because keep printing money, the price goes up, but the money, the house is not going to appreciate. It's just money depreciate. Okay? That is, some people said, not me. Okay? Disclaimer, okay? Not quote me, okay? Don't quote me. I didn't say anything, okay? Some quote, some said this is the case, okay? So, that's what I want to say. After the break, we talk about a little bit about interest rate, okay? Let's end with the money supply here now. Let's do some U reply in the meantime. It'd be great if you try to do the U reply and then tell me how you think, how fast or how slow. let's see how we think we are doing. So none of us today, one of us feel great. Most of us think bad. Okay. So be more optimistic. Okay. Don't be so pessimistic. I guess we're getting better, right? At least this is my last lecture, so getting better, right? Next one will be yours, right? So the next one will be yours, and the quiz, right? Quiz 2, and then present, and then the next also your present, and then we have an exam at the end, right? So no need to listen to my talk after this week. So be better, hopefully. Speed is appropriate. That's good. I don't have 1 and 2 today. Yeah, so I think it's okay. And it's better. 3. Where's 3? Yeah. Oh, okay. You can follow lecture today. That's good. Yeah, diamond is not money. At least not for daily transaction, right? Diamond is for money when you want to get married, right? It's the married market money. Unhappy, let's be happy. Yeah, that is what people try to say, because the property market, the growth is basically following the money. That's what people say. But the growth rate, okay. Money, yeah. And number 6. Messi will play tomorrow. I guess not, according to my information source. Probably not. One reason probably is not enough money. I don't think we pay enough for him to play, like the Cristiano Ronaldo, right? Every football star, when it comes to Hong Kong, most of likely they don't pay, because we don't pay them enough to play. Money, yeah. So I try to understand this. Seems to be correct. Healthy joke. Chinese market pitfall. Oh yeah. So the Chinese stock market, probably you know, right? People would say it's like the Myanmar A stock, right? But anyway. Now we know the money, right? So just quickly go to the interest rate, because this is, remember this diagram, right? Money supply, right? Related to the interest rate, okay? And this classical thing is looking at the interest rate have to be decomposed in 2 parts. The interest rate we see, okay, will be decomposed in 2 parts. He proved it. We don't want to do it today, but will be just the real interest rate plus inflation. Why we need this decomposition, right? Because look at the bond market, right? We look at why it moved, okay? It can be due to the real interest rate changes and change in inflation, right? If you expect the government print more money, or they are printing more money, it will be large or high, the PI, right? And when you decide how you trade off tomorrow in the future, right, it really depends on the real interest rate, right? Because you spend $1 more, right, you are looking at how it trade off tomorrow's, right? So this is the thing you care, right? So when people decide to keep the money, it's just the real interest rate that matters. Okay? And in a classical model, right, as look like this is how you determine real interest rate is demand and supply, right? And in that case, the demand, right, would be coming from saving in the long run, right? Because they would provide their money, right? It's the supply there. And the investment, the demand side, right? People would need the money to borrow market, right? And Fisher equation would say, right, inflation is related to the nominal interest rate, right? Because I is equal to R plus pi E. Quantitative money, say money growth, is related to inflation, okay? So in combine this logic, we say the money growth lead to inflation, lead to interest rate, right? So this lead to this and this lead to this, right? So that means that if you think things are growing, right? We print more money, interest rate will go up, right? And interest will go up, then you would also expect other financial assets or non-financial assets will go up, right? Either they go up in terms of it's a return, right? Because it's a return, right? Look at the house. What's the return of the house? You buy a house. There are two returns, like the stock, right? Stock, we have two things. One is dividend. The other is capital gain, right? You buy a house, two things. One is the rental income and the capital gain, right? And this, if you look at this equation, right? Or look at the return equation, if you expect the rental income is not going to go up, the housing price will go up, right? Because must be capital gain, right? So if the government is print, that's why I explained the idea, right? We argue that if you print a lot of money, housing price will go up. Right? It's come from here. But anyway, so I hope that's okay. So now let's talk about inflation. Probably everyone knows it. Here is inflation means an important word is sustained increase. So keep increasing the price level, right? And the measurement will be, we learn the consumer price index or producer price index, right? Just to remind you, the CPI would be look at a typical consumer, look at his basket, what kind of good he produce, what kind of good he consume, right? And then look at how the price changes, the CPI, right? The PPI would be looking at in particular firm, okay? And what are those prices changes, right? And just quickly talk about inflation costs, right? And actually, this is the part that puzzles a lot of economists because in general, in the open economy, printing more money has no impact because in the long run, right? Because people just, if you say the government print 10 times more money, right? So that means that everything added zero to there at the end, right? So nothing changes. And the question would be, what would be the cost of printing money, okay? And it takes a lot of time for economists to come up with several costs there, right? First one is menu cost because people have to change the menu, right? Because you add a zero at the end, right? You have to write it, right? Change some prices, then you have to take time to revise. There's a menu cost. The other one is the sue letter cost, which means that in the old days, right, people have to spend cash, right? People have to walk to the bank to get money, right? Because inflation, people don't want to keep money in their pocket, right? They put in the bank, give interest rate, right? So that is called the sue letter cost. And the other two costs is before the price adjustment, then the allocation is imperfect, right? Because people are not smart enough to figure out actually government print money, right? So they just do wrong thing. And the other one is the tax system is wrong because the tax system is very rigid, right? So you can't change things that easily. We respond to inflation, right? So these are the costs of, we can see they're really minimal, not really much. Do note that this is because of the open economy. That's the case, right? If you close economy, you keep printing money, that can be an issue together with fixed exchange rate. But that is something that we don't talk about today because we don't have time to talk about international trade or international macro. But here is, in the economy is open, there's no problem. There are also certain problem of inflation. The first one is called the unexpected inflation. Okay, if you don't know the government is printing a lot of money, right? Then when people make the plan, which is long run, that will lead to a lot of money transfer between people, right? And one of the reasons, right, that people in many countries in the world are not happy the last 10 to 20 years is every government in the world is printing a lot of money. Okay? And that means that those people who have house or other financial property gain because this price adjusts according to inflation. But those who don't have would be suffer, right? Because it takes a long time for this to adjust, right? And that's why it means that those debtor, insurance, the pensioner, all those people actually lost, right? And those people who speculate, they win, right? So that's why it's called the fundamental root of the problem of many places in the world, right? So you can see the rise of the left in the recent 10 to 20 years, right? Because of this, right? The left become more powerful because they talk about the equal sharing or the money because of the rich become more richer, the poor become poor, right? Occupy Wall Street, right? Is one of the things. And the other is called the uncertain inflation. The problem is like you don't know the inflation. That means that it makes it very difficult to do investment, right? Because you don't know whether the government printing money or not. Then it's very difficult to predict, right? If the government suddenly print more money, then you lose all the money, right? You lose all the wealth, and that means that makes things very difficult, right? So that's why you can see in the Federal Reserve, right? It's very clear what they're doing, right? Everyone knows, I guess you agree, right? What they are doing very clear. They want to keep the inflation at 2%. That's the primary goal, right? They will keep the interest rate high as long as about 2%. Right? That's what they said. They have been doing this. This is the standard thing we expect, right? Of course, this is the goal that is why this goal, because this is the goal dictated by the law. The Federal Reserve have to maintain inflation at a natural rate, which is 2%. And of course, the Federal Reserve has second goal is the output, right? The economy, the employment, right? If the economy is bad, then you will know the interest rate would adjust accordingly, right? So that means that in the U.S., the inflation, the central bank is trying to make sure that this is more or less a certain one, right? Not certain, then it's not very good. But of course, if you look at the recent inflation in the U.S., right, because it's not controlled by the Federal Reserve, it's not difficult, right? Because of popular know, right? Because why with inflation these days? Because of the war, right? Everything is the production is go down, right? So things become more expensive anyway, right? So it's very difficult to control. The last thing is probably that is something that is very important. It's called hyperinflation, which said the inflation is so high in the sense is 50% per month that we call hyperinflation, but there's definition. And that means that money basically useless, right? If you don't buy, then you will be useless, right? I think in some economy, even now, right, you suffer this problem, right? So as one of my friends, several friends who are faculty member in some Southeast Asian country, I don't want to name it, but what they do, when the first day of the month, they go to the bank and change the US dollar, okay? That's what they do, okay? They're not doing anything but go to the bank to change money, okay? And look at history, okay? Look at the Chinese history, try to look at almost all the, at the end of any dynasty, you will see inflation, hyperinflation. You see, look at the Yuan dynasty, it's very strong. Mongolia captured almost all the world, and then you can see one of the reasons why they go bankrupt is because printing money, right? They print money to do a lot of public projects, right? And you look at why the national party, they lose their power. One of the reasons is they print a lot of money after the World War II, right? And because of the US need the government to pay back the war bond, right? The war debt, so they print a lot of money, right? And that's why they lost in the Civil War. And look at earlier the same, okay? Hyperinflation is the a lot of time is the reason why, not the reason, but at least coincide with the collapse of the regime. So of course, there's some benefit of inflation, right? Offset many costs. One of the reasons why inflation can be good is because our wage is sticky. For firm, it's very difficult to cut someone's salary. Even cut $1, your morale can be go way low. Okay? But with inflation, that means that if I don't increase your salary, there is a salary cut. Okay? That's how in the US, how faculty salary are being regulated, right? Because faculty have tenure, right? You cannot fire them, okay? And you can't easily decrease their salary, right? But if you don't produce, then your salary remains the same, and the inflation goes up, your real wage goes down, okay? So that's why you can see why 2% is optimal in the US system, because they think they have calculated 2% optimal in that particular, in those senses. Of course, the other at the benefit, right? And the important is to reduce labor market friction, right? Because if there's no inflation, your wage cannot downward adjust, right? That means that if firm want to hire people, have to be very careful, right? But I now allow inflation to make your salary go down, the real salary go down, then I'm more open to hire people. Okay. So that's why it's like this, right? And then probably you know, in Hong Kong or in the Chinese system, for the civil servant, the wage is fixed at a certain level for a particular job. You cannot go down, right? So that's why, right, they have a call not in the system, informal civil servant, right? BNY, it's not in the system. So that is how they, and another way to allow adjustment downward, right? You can fire that guy, you can lower that guy's wages, it's fine. Okay? So that is what a very famous economist, Milton Friedman, if you know, Milton Friedman is the Nobel Prize winner, and he is the guy, one of the representative of the Chicago School, and he often said, inflation is what? It's not about people are more optimistic, the economy is good, or what? It's not about, it's only about a monetary phenomenon. Basically, it's government printing money. That's what I said, okay? Inflation, only thing is printing money. It's not about firm is more optimistic, invest more, or consumer, they spend more. Nothing. What he said is, look at all the history of the economy. He concludes inflation is almost always government printing money. Basically, the Fisher equation. Okay? Right? But sorry, the quantitative money equation, right? You just go back to this one. Basically, this one, right? This one. Money, you just this lead to this. That's what he said. Okay. Is that okay? So we understand, I guess, give you the idea of money, inflation, GDP. Okay, 3 important things. We don't have time to go over unemployment or those things, but I guess I give you the important metrics for those. Okay. Now we go to look at how classical macro looks. Okay. So classical macro means the macro that before Keynes, okay, before the World War II, okay. This is the classical macro, okay, before John Maynard Keynes, before. So the most famous is we call it the Say's law. Okay, Say's law. Say's law, although it's very complicated, mean one thing: supply create demand. Okay, means what? As long as we produce something, okay, there will be demand there. Okay, because it can be sold to someone who buy it, and those people with money can spend, right? So that's why supply creates demand, right? As long as you produce something, it's marketable, right? Then it's done, right? That is actually the idea what we call the supply side economics, right? Is the idea of why, how the Chinese economy that boomed for the last 20 years, right? Supply side, right? Government build more highway, build more house, right? And that means that GDP will go up, right? And this thing, someone will buy it, and this money go into the market, right? You build many tall building, someone buy it, right? And this money go to the developer or the builder, right? They will spend the money and go on, right? That's why they keep building roads, keep building house, the Say's law. Okay? So that means that in this model, there's no financial crisis. There's no economy problem, right? Because as long as I produce something, it gets sold somehow, one way or the other, that's fine, right? Of course, this is true in the long run. There's no problem in the long run, right? In the long run, this is right? Because we go tree, we have apple, someone eat it, then there will be no problem, right? Apple there, we'll eat the apple, right? We'll not leave the apple rotten, right? As long as it gets produced, someone would need it. There will be no insufficient demand, right? Demand will always there, right? There shouldn't be unemployment, right? Because there's someone who needs a job. I would do the job for it. Okay? If I would rather do a job than unemployed. Okay, that's a law there, right? The house, I build it. Don't worry about the demand. I build the house. Someone have to go in to live there, right? That is the idea. Okay. So what does that mean? It means that that's very important. Supply creates demand, so it means that what you have determines the equilibrium. Okay? So do I have the table there, the graph here? Oh, I don't, but what it means is like this. This is the quantity. This is price. Okay? In the long run, this is supply. Okay? Maybe I use the, you can use labor and wage, maybe easier to think. Right? Labor supply will be us, right? We're working, right? And there will be demand there regardless of how the demand is, right? That is how the sales law said, right? You don't need to worry about the demand because there will be some demand anyway. The price adjusts accordingly so that demand and supply always meet, right? So that is what sales law said. Okay, so we don't need to worry about it. Output is determined by endowment, is how many labor we have, right? So the more labor we have, the more GDP we have. The more capital we have, the more GDP we have. Okay? So this sales law is actually pretty correct. Okay? If you look at in the 80s and 90s, what we have is the economic miracle, is the Asian four tiger, right? And people will say, okay, why so weird, right? Asian four tiger comes out. And if you look at the data, okay, carefully, turn out to be, it's not economic miracle, it's just because endowment increase. Look at the four tiger, right? Taiwan, Korea, Hong Kong, and Singapore. It's not because suddenly they become smarter or whatever. It just, this economy just have more capital, more labor. That's it. Okay? And in the long run, they fit pretty well. So the GDP is determined by endowment. Okay? And later you will see this is actually what the solo growth model will say. Okay? It's how what you have in the economy, how much labor you have, how many capital you have, determine the system. Okay? And the long run, supply don't change, right? Of course. Right? Of course, depend on the growth of the economy, right? How many babies you have, and so on and so forth. And that's the reason why, right? Everyone is worried about the population, the growth, the birth rate, right? Even our dear leader in the North Korea, Kim Jong-il, is crying because of the growth, the birth rate is dropping. Okay, you can look at the video there. He's crying. The only time you saw him cry publicly is he looked at the birth rate in Korea. North Korea is very low. Okay, why? You follow this model. The sales law will tell you if the population is dropping, that means that this S shift left, right? The GDP is reducing. Okay, and that's why you can see the Chinese government is also worried about this, right? So that's why in the old days we have one-child policy, right? And then suddenly we have two-child policy or 1.5 child policy, and now we have unlimited child policy, right? So that is the idea. Okay, so that's what the sales law said. Okay, and that's the model that we're talking at. What we look at is a model that try to, that's there already. Okay, sorry. So try to explain that. So in general, we can write the economy, the GDP, in the long run because determined by endowment, capital and labor. Okay? And F will be the technology. Okay? Give me the technology and give me the capital and labor, it will determine GDP. That's Y equal to F of K and L. Okay? And to understand economic growth, usually we will focus on what we call the Cobb-Douglas function, and that is fit very well for the US data. Not so much for other countries, but this is what they do is K raised to the power alpha and L1 minus alpha. You may ask what's alpha? Alpha is like 0.3. Okay? 0.3. 0.3 or 0.4, around 0.3 and 0.4. Okay? So raised to the 0.3 and this 0.7, so it's A. So this is a diminishing return idea, which means that you have more capital and more capital and more capital. The extra capital gives you a little, the gain is very little, getting less and less. Okay? So If you try to draw, it's like this. It's a concave shape. Okay. If you keep the L the same, it's like this shape. Okay. Now, as we said, the model in the long run, capital and labor is given by the endowment, right? How actually, because you can create capital and labor out of thin air, right? This is what we have, okay? And that means that GDP is determined by technology and your endowment, right? So that's why how Chinese government grow the economy, right, is asking people to have more baby, right, or attracting FDI, right, because you can't increase your K in your own country, right, but you can ask other people to invest, right, or migration, right. We have one belt, one road, right. The Chinese government tried to import many foreign talent, right, to the Chinese economy, same as Hong Kong, right. We have a high-level talent, right, that increase L, right. And technology F is very difficult to improve, but we try, right. And that's why AI, right, will improve our productivity, right. So that's why F is very important, right. That's how all the government in the world, including Chinese economy, Chinese government, trying to do, right? Improve L, improve K, improve technology, right? But anyway, in the long run, they are kind of fixed, right? And then we define the other side. It's called the factor of production, okay? Who can produce this, right? Who produce the production, you need capital, labor, and land, right? You have to pay them. Okay? And this is what I said, right? How much labor you have is vertical, right? Because no matter what the wages is, right? We can work 8 hours a day. Yes? F is a function, but it will determine by technology. So F of K is L is like, suppose technology goes up, you will shift like this. Okay? The function means you give me the K, give me L, right? For the same technology, it's fixed, right? When the technology is getting better, you shift up and up and up, right? So, and that is how the government can do, right? It's either have more baby, have more capital, or improve technology, right? So that's why the Chinese government spent so much money on the chips, on AI, because they are thinking to improve the technology, right? Here we have the labor market, right? No matter, in the long run, no matter what the wage level is, okay? We only work 8 hours, right? So no matter what, the same, right? As long as the labor force is not going to someone die or something happen, right? There's a war, then we go shift down, shift the left, right? If immigration comes in, we go this way, right? But anyway, this is fixed in the long run. And the factor demand, okay, is going to be like this, downward sloping. You may ask why. The reason is very simple, right? If the wage is high, you don't want to hire so many labor, right? If the wage is low, you can hire a lot, right? And then this is exactly what happened, right? In the 70s, 80s, the wage in China is very low. That's why a lot of labor was higher, right? Now the wage in China getting up and higher, much fewer labor is being used, right? Why? Because you use more capital, right? You look at the factory in China in the old days, right? It's labor intensive, right? But you look at now a lot of factory in China, many of them, right? Look at the Foxconn, right? Foxconn, right? They have a lot of capital there, right? Okay, and this is what you have in the long run economy, same as I drawn just now, right? This is the wage rate. This is the capital or labor use. Okay. And I don't want to go to the math because no one likes math anyway. Okay. So the math would tell you one thing, okay? Is the math actually tell you this. I don't want to go to that. This is just marginal product of labor. Okay. Why? Because competitive market, right? How much you want to hire labor will be same as how much they can produce. Okay. So that's the proof here. You just imagine you change the labor or capital, right? How much you want to hire, okay? Do it this way, okay? Let's think about this in the cost and benefit sense. If maybe I use this equation there, okay? I just explain this equation, okay? Without going to math, okay? Maybe I use labor, okay? Why is this equation here? If you hire one more labor, what you do? Pay the wage rate. Okay? And if you hire one more labor, then your production will increase by this one, the marginal product. Right? It's just like this slope here. Here, you increase one more, how this goes up. Right? It's marginal. Okay? And produce this much, how much you can sell is the P, right? So that's why this is called in economics, it's called value of marginal product or marginal product value, okay? Or marginal value of labor, okay? And or you can look at this is okay. So why we have this equation there, okay? Why we care about this? It's because of the following, okay? If you don't care about the math, that's the thing we need to know, is this equation. It's what we call the Euler's theorem, okay? It's a math result, okay? What it said is, if you look at the output, okay? Because constant in the scale, you can always decompose it into two parts. How many capital you have, okay? And the marginal product of capital. That means that you increase one more capital, how much the output will increase. Okay? And labor times how much labor you increase. Okay? So that's Euler's theorem. Okay? So why I want to do that is because I have proved that the marginal product of capital is the rental rate over price. Marginal capital of labor is wage over price. Okay? And what do I have here? If I have y here, okay, maybe I rewrite that equation. Y is here, P is here, right? So it means P of y is the total money value of the GDP is equal to capital times wage rate plus labor touched his wage rate, right? So there's no profit in the system, okay? So look at this is The only difference compared to the GDP equation is there's no profit. Okay? It means that the GDP would be either got by the capitalist or the labor. Okay? That's the model. Okay? There are no profit in system, of course, because of perfect competition. Okay? And that is the reason, it's the model. Okay? There's a result, fundamental result in this model. Okay? There's no profit earned by the firm. Okay? So of course, if you don't want to carry out math, this is the model, basically just saying that there's no profit. Profit equal to 0. Why we care about this? Let me, so quickly, because of the firm's profit is the revenue minus cost of capital minus cost of labor, you can prove profit is 0, right? Because they are the same. Okay? And last slide. So why we want to care about that, okay? It's because the following. We can estimate marginal product of capital and marginal product of labor if you're willing to assume this formula. Okay? How I look at how efficient the economy is, because this MPK, M.Phil is very difficult to measure. Right? But anyway, they are equal to the wage rate and the capital wage rate and the rental rate, right? But you can also estimate, look at the aggregate data. Why? I can get the GDP from the government. How much capital? You can also get it from the government data, right? Alpha, you can also know it because alpha is a more or less 0.3 something. It's a stable number. So you can estimate the rental rate, right? Why you care about rental rate? Rental rate is also interest rate. It's also something you care, right? This is from the macro model. You can come up with the R, right? Remember, related to this one, right? Remember, we have the consumption cap model, right? There's an R there, right? The return also can come from, should be also related to this one. Okay? And the wage rate, right, is related to this one. Okay? So, if a country claims their GDP goes up, okay, and the labor goes down, okay, but the wage rate goes up, something must be wrong. Okay? Or look at the data, GDP goes up, right? The labor force is going down, and this must go up, right? But if you see this goes down, something must be happening, right? So there's a puzzle, right? You look at the Chinese economy, right? We have economic growth, right? Labor is reducing, right? We know that, right? The first time that our country has a population growth drop, right? Labor is aging, and the wage is going up, right? Right? They're supposed to go up, right? But many people report their wage go down, right? So something must be something, right? I don't know what's going on, but you know that something must be, may not be right, maybe some inconsistency, but same. Same as the capital return there, right? If you have more Y, right? Y is going up, right? And capital is decreasing because you see manufacturing actually moved to Vietnam or Southeast Asia country, right? Because of the trade war there. And this goes up, this goes down, this must go up, right? The R should go up, right? And that should be the R actually related to the stock market, right? The stock market should go up, instead of go down, right? then stock market go down, something must be wrong, right? Well, I don't know what's wrong, but there might be something there, okay? So even this equation can tell you a lot, right? You can see whether, you can check whether something is wrong, something is not wrong. I don't know, but I'm not macro, right? So just look at the equation. Something must be there, okay? So quickly, last one, right? So usually, as I said, in general, capital would get 30% of GDP, right? Because RK is alpha Y, right? WL would be 1 minus alpha Y. Okay? So worker will get 7% of GDP, right? The capitalist, surprisingly, some of you will think should be other way around, right? We should expect, wait a minute, capitalists should be getting all the money that we make, right? It's kind of correct, right? But this is saying the 30%, right? The capital gets 30%, but the capital they have is so large, right? Even 30% in absolute value will be much larger than what we earn, right? So the capitalists, although they don't get a lot in the production, right? But because they have so much capital, right? So it looks like the absolute value is much more. But in relative sense, they don't get a lot. Okay? In the flow, it doesn't get a lot. But in stock sense, because they have so much capital, so that's why capitalists, in terms of absolute value, they earn much more, right? But in terms of calculation, at least in the US data, right, labor actually get 30%, 70% of GDP, right? But because capitalist is concentrated in a few people, so that's why they earn way more, right? Because you look at the data, right? 1% of the people own majority of the capital, right? 1% versus 99%, right? So in absolute value, they're more. But in general, I mean, labor is still getting a lot, right? But I don't know when we have AI, we have a robot, what happened to this thing? Okay? This is stable in the past 10 to 20 years, right? But I would guess, if you ask me, in the future, the capital get much more because of robot and AI automation, right? Substitution there. But anyway, we talk about things after the break. Let's have a break of 15 minutes. exam question 嚟㗎啦，大家邊我見到話咩 normal group 啊嘛 house 係 normal group。我啲 ID 一定唔到。唔係我知 normal question 都係俾一個 case 你去 solve 㗎，咁係有啲 apply 嘅，會係佢咁樣嘅。我問下佢。開大，好似冇埋之前。我哋先兩樣。無限嘅。 example。
買啲衫啊！
你 B.A 點啊？因為佢比較熟啲admin嘅嘢，對於我嚟講冇所謂。我係 indifferent，我冇可能。大家唔好出術咁得嘅。係，因為大家出術咧，就大家考多次啊嘛。佢影響到我啊嘛，佢出得咪都試卷啊嘛。係咯，咁所以佢就係咁，我唔知有問咧，我問你你問佢，你問下佢咯，問佢咯。咁我delegate俾佢話事，就嗰陣問啦。B.B.A 啊，所以最主要係這兩個情況都比較少，即係話唔使做嘅有錢。這樣容易係
係好偏人就未，佢覺得佢多嘅。佢哋食緊甜品咋，即係自己試著。係啦係啊，我就覺得都係粉狀嘅。面對方面，我話俾你知，中國人食咩？係啊，我就好健康嘅。 係好明呢條式啊。我唔即係個樣嘢係解咩啊？
即係個 firm 請幾多人咧？佢請到嗰幾多人之後咧，佢有一個成本就係個 wage 啦。係。佢個好處就係佢請咗個人之後，佢生產咗幾多嘢，成翻個 price。呢個就係請人佢嘅生產力，右邊嘅生產力，左邊就係佢嘅請人成本。左邊就係請人嘅好處。佢請到嘅好處同壞處一樣。
咁譬如我請第一個人同我第二個人，一個係 specific，
一個 single wage。
single 嘅。
所有人都同一個 wage。homogeneous 嚟寫。
所有人有同一個 wage。但係唔係啱啱話咩嘅咩？啱啱話越請得多嘅話 ，suppose the wage 越嚟越低。
係啊，但係 equilibrium 嗰個 labour。
即係 equilibrium 個 case 已經係。
係啊 ，equilibrium 嗰陣時，佢請多一個人嗰個回報同佢嘅成本一樣噶嘛。
我請多一個人嘅回報同我個成本係一樣。
譬如話，而家個 wage 係10蚊，如果佢嘅生產力係15嘅，你咪請咯，請到10蚊為止咯。因為對於 firm 嚟講 ，wage 係不變噶嘛，你個 wage 係固定噶嘛。譬如話30蚊個鐘一個人，咁你咪喺度請咯，請到佢你個請人嗰個生產力同你個 wage 一樣。
呢嚿嘢其實點 quantify 咧？
呢嚿嘢就係個斜率咯。如果呢個 L 有幾斜，就係 DFDL。有幾斜咧？即係請到一個人之後 ，L 加1，呢個飛得幾高啫嘛。
但係會越嚟越少啊。
係越嚟越少㗎。
咁其實個 F 係點樣點出嚟㗎
？F 生產力咯，因為 F 係咩啊？俾個 capital 俾個 labour 你幾多個生產力啊嘛？咩 F 咁嚟？唔知點嚟㗎，可以 estimate 嘅。
或者實際上嘅 application 嚟講係
有人 estimate 㗎，好複雜㗎呢個。有人 estimate 啲嘢嘅，有人做呢啲嘢嘅。input output table 有人做呢啲嘢嘅。有嘅 capital 嘅 labour 嘅 output， 咁咪譬如話有10個機器10個人做到10件嘢，咁咪有啲方法去做。
我覺得冇乜所謂嘅，不過理論上咧，我哋係咪應該要問一問佢哋，即係我哋寫咗 course，
係啦，就咁咪問咯。
咁真唔使同佢哋即係你使唔使即係叫做咩 consensus OK 嘛？ at least 問
係咯，我就想問，所以就問你直情暗面係點樣，我就問啦。
正路咧，如果我哋咁樣寫咗一張嘅話咧，我可以譬如可能喺個 group 嗰度我 send 個 message 出嚟，有冇人反對咯？
好啦，好。
係啦，或者喺 Blackboard 嗰度出多個 announcement，係啦，反對，有人反對 send email 俾我哋就唔會話俾人聽。咁我哋幾多號之前冇人反對嘅，我哋就當係啦。
OK，好，唔該你。嗱，佢會確認，佢會發個 message 喺 WeChat group 嗰度，係啦，佢確認，佢會發個 message， 大家冇反對，不反對通知書之下咁可以過。佢會問嘅咧，手寫啦，係啦。So, let me quickly finish the classical model. Okay. So basically, let's go back to this one again quickly. So what the classical model would say is the supply of labor, say for example, is vertical because depend on how many population you have. And this factor demand, right, according to the competition, right, it depends on the marginal product of labor, right? This is decreasing, so that's why you're this guy, right? So this is determined by technology, right? This one, right? How steep is this is determined by how technology looks like, right? Where it locates, right? Say, for example, if technology is getting better, right? That means that you shift to the right, right? So that means that the wage will go up, right? So that would be the idea, right? Or in the case that there's a war, right, then you will shift to the left, the supply, right? So that's how this kind of model you can analysis if you want to, right? Basically, this is the case. So, want to talk about the product market, right? And so far, we only talk about the factor side, right? How the wage rate is being determined, right? Because why look at this model? This particular model would tell us how wage rate being determined, right? Of course, in this model, there's no unemployment, but look at the wage rate and the interest rate in the real being determined, right? Determined on look at how the demand looks like, right? You can imagine AI, right? In the long run, would shift the further demand to the right-hand side, right? That means that capital will become more expensive, right? Because the factor price, right? And that's the reason why you can see the chips by Nevada, right? Become very high, right? Because the supply cannot shift, right? Keep goes up. Now, we want to understand the product market. We understand the factor market already, right? Because the circular flow have two parts, right? The factor side and the product side, right? Above is how people get the income. Yeah, your question. Your question, right? So the other is the below. Below is the CIGNX, right? This is exactly the four engines of the economy, right? We want to see how they are being determined. So for the consumption, this is a famous, we call the consumption function, okay? This is first proposed by Keynes. I don't have time to go about that, but what he said is if you have more money, you spend more money. That's what the first thing you say. And you don't spend all your money, right? You keep something in the bank. Okay? And the slope is called the marginal propensity to consume, which means that if your income go up by 1, how much consumption you go up, right? And usually it's less than 1 because you say your salary go up by $1 more, you don't spend all $1, right? If you spend all $1, this MPC is 1, so the slope is 1. But in general, slope is less than 1, right? And why you start here? Because even though you have no money, you need to survive, right? So it's like this, right? And the income y is y minus t because your income would depend on what you can spend, right? That's why it's possible because you can't escape, right? Tax, right? I think there's a famous saying, right? There are two things you can't escape in the world. One is death, the other is tax, right? So tax is here, okay? So this is a little bit less steep, okay? The slope is less than 1. Next is this. It's called the investment function, okay? Investment function is talking about how people do investment. Look at the real interest rate, which is downward sloping, okay? The higher the interest rate, the less investment you do. The lower, you do more. The idea is standard idea of the discount cash flow model or internal rate, the internal required return model, right? The higher the interest rate, right? Less projects that are profitable, right? The lower the interest rate, more projects become profitable, right? So the interest rate would determine how much investment you have, right? Suppose the interest rate is 0, then anything that can generate more, you would do, right? But if interest rate goes up higher and higher, then you would try to abandon project that is not profitable. So that is the idea, right? This investment function. And in this model, the basic model assumes the government spending is exogenous. Why? Because we're talking about economics, not political economy, and no economists want to go to jail, so we fix, okay? And tax is fixed, okay? And in what discipline talk about the G is public finance or political economy, they study those, okay? And we don't talk about this here. But that will be very important, but we don't talk about those. Okay? So now we have all the equation there. First is production side. That will give you the product market. And the demand Y equals C plus I plus G. And consumption function, investment function, government and tax. So all this we can determine the equilibrium in the long run. Okay? So we will have two different markets. This is standard way you do macro. One is called the goods market, the physical market. The other is called financial market. It's what we have. Master of Finance, we do that. Okay. So what is the goods market? It's very simple. Is your production depend on the technology, how you can convert capital and labor into output. And you can look at demand, right? The consumption must come from, the output should come from consumption, investment, government, right? There's no export because this economy is closed, so we don't talk about. And the financial market, okay, is consists of two parts, okay? Saving is what? Come from your output, net of your consumption and government spending, right? What is not used is cost saving, right? The money, people have the money, and you don't buy it, the government don't buy it, must be saved, right? You put in the bank, right? And the financial market auto investment, right? This money, right, will go to investment, right? And the investment is determined by R, okay? And you would ask ourselves how these two markets are related, right? And you will see interest rate is the key to connect the real side economy and financial side. So that is why we emphasize this point here, okay? We'll draw a graph to illustrate all these things together. So first is, as we said, the goods market is output determined by capital labor, we know it, right? And the goods demand will be determined by this consumption, investment, and government. So let's see, I think the graph, or not the graph yet, okay? And the money market will be replaced by this. So let's see the money market, okay? The money market will be saving, okay? Why saving? Saving is what? Let me write that down here, right? Saving is what? Y minus C minus G, right? G is fixed, right? First one, G is fixed. And Y is what? Y is capital and labor, right? And capital labor is fixed in the long run, right? How much capital you have, how much labor you have is fixed. So total output is fixed. Fair, right? And C is what? C, consumption, depends on two things. Output minus tax, right? How much money you in your actual pocket. But Y is also fixed by capital and labor, right? So how much consumed is also fixed, right? Because Y is what? Y is FKL, right? So how much you save in the long run is a fixed thing for the whole economy, right? Unless this fixed part changes, right? So suppose government spend more money, then you save less, right? But the saving is fixed if you hold all these things fixed, okay? And the investment like this, so the equilibrium is determined by this one, okay? Probably ask, okay, so what, okay? Now we can analyze this by changing stuff. Imagine government spend more money, okay? Government may be spending more welfare or spending more on weapons, okay? Which is probably no use. Then what happened is minus G bar, right? So this will shift to the left, right? Minus G, right? So shift to the left-hand side. So in this model, if government spend more money, then what will happen is interest rate will go up, okay? And investment saving will go down, right? Sometimes people would call this substitution, right? The government, because of spending more resources, right? Interest rate goes up, right? So that would be some problem, right? Because of less private investment, right? So, okay, so that would be the prediction of this model, right? The government, if they do more of this, right? Similarly, right? Tax. What happened if government reduce tax? Okay, let's think about this model. Government reduce tax, what's the impact on the interest rate? Okay. So suppose you look at this, government suddenly reduce tax, right? That's what happened when we have consumption voucher or tax rebate or whatever in this recently, right? Have less tax. In this model, you have more money, you have more consumption. Okay? If you have more consumption, then the saving would reduce, right? Same happen. So consumption voucher or tax reduction will lead to increase in interest rate, right? Because people spend more, then they invest less, right? Interest will go up. So according to this model, in the long run, of course, short run can be different, but this is what happened in the long run. Is that clear? So this model is very convenient, as you can see, can analyze the long run impact of the financial market, right? The interest rate is the equilibrium outcome, right? The interest rate, and this is investment and saving behavior, right? And of course, if you have this investment can also shift left or right accordingly, right? Because suppose you have more AI or the economy expected to be good, right? A lot of investment opportunity, right? Then this will shift to the right-hand side, right? So suppose you have more investment opportunity, right? For some reason, I don't know why, but imagine this happened, right? What happened is the total saving actually not increase, but interest rate goes up, right? It's not going to affect the overall, just people bidding up the cost, right? So that it just makes interest rate goes up, right? It's not going to improve your increase your investment, right? More investment opportunity doesn't mean you increase your investment overall, right? Unless other thing changes, but this is the standard model implied. Okay. Okay. So this is the model of the financial market. Okay. Now after that we go to a very important model called ADS model, and this is a model that even in the central bank they use this one. Of course, a more complicated version, but this is the version that we talk about is the one that people use it. Okay. So remember the quantity field of money, MV equal to PY. Okay? And that means that P and Y are inversely related, right? Holding money constant because money is neutral, right? Holding money constant, this is inverse related. Okay, that's called the AD curve. Okay, or you can think simple means if price is very low, more output people would want. Okay, price high, but this is aggregate demand. Okay, and remember, we draw this diagram holding the money constant, right? Same M, increase in P, drop in Y, all right? So that means that if I increase my M, what happened? Okay, let's write down the formula. You may be using the math easy. Look at this. P is equal to mv over Y, right? Just make P the subject. Fair? Right? So if your M goes up, what happened? Your curve shifts to the right-hand side. M goes down, shift to the left-hand side. So money will shift this AD curve. So shift to the right-hand side, AD will shift to the left-hand side. So because this M equal to PY. Now we have long run AS, what we have said, right? Because long run, the output is determined by very simple factor, right? The output is just F equal to KL, right? So long run, how much you can produce depend on how much labor you have, how much capital you have, how technology you are, right? So it's vertical, not change according to price level. Of course, if your technology goes up, go to the right-hand side. You have more baby, go to the right-hand side. You have more capital, go to the right-hand side. Okay? So, but if those things doesn't happen, it's a vertical. So this is AS. Okay? So now, what we have is what we call the neutrality of money. This is, we are we are with the B, so suppose we have B here. Where we have B? Now the government print more money. What happened? Okay? In the long run, you go to A. Nothing changes. Printing more money in the long run cannot boost the production. Right? How much you can produce depends on output, depend on input and technology. Right? You cannot print money by magic growth economy. Right? You can just go from B to A. You print more money. At the end, higher price level. Right? So the printing machine, right, cannot boost the economy. Right? May change the stock market or whatever, but cannot change the overall. Okay? Say suppose that's why when we talk about long-term investment, value investment, do they talk about central bank? No. They don't care about central bank. Why? In the long run, doesn't really matter. Right? At the end, depend on output. Right? They don't care about the monetary policy. Nothing changes. Right? No matter how much money they print, the print doesn't really matter. Okay? Okay? So now we incorporate the idea, we don't have time, but we go to one thing. It's called the sticky price. Okay? I don't have time to go about that. But we talk about this very important thing. It's called the sticky price model. It's what the Keynes said. Okay? In the short run, okay, price keep the same, no matter what. Why? Because our wage. Okay, are you willing to work 10,000 less per month? No. Right? Wage or price is very sticky. You look at people ask, so I look at the price on the street. The rent goes down so low, but the price you see doesn't go down. Right? Usually many prices are very sticky. Our wages is very sticky. All right? So that in short run, it's like this. Okay? So now we can use this model to explain a lot of stuff. Okay? we're in the B, okay? And now if the government print more money, okay, they will go from B to A, right? Printing money, actually from B to A, you increase output, okay, in the short run. If the price is not fixed, the central bank print money can boost output. So that's the reason why the Federal Reserve is thinking, okay, in the short run, they print more money, people is not smart enough to figure that out, economy boosts. Okay, that's what the short run adjustment is being done. Right? So that is the idea why you see when economy is not good, central bank would print money. Right? That's the idea. Goes on here. Okay. But in the long run, it goes back to here anyway. Right? So it doesn't really move at all. So let's look at this one, okay? Imagine now we are C, we're A here, okay? We're A here, okay? And what happened is now the central bank actually reduced money supply, right? Happened is now is the Federal Reserve actually reduced money supply, right? After the quantitative easing, now they just contracting. What happened is you would have this thing goes down, right? The money supply shift right this way. That means that in the short run, the output from A go to B, right? So reduced money supply would contract the economy, right? If you are thinking the market is overheating, right? You increase the interest rate or increase the money supply, we shift it back to B, right? But in the long run, it will go down the price level along, go back to C, right? So first is A, and then go to B, and then go to C, when money supply drops. So that's how, in the classical world, how money can be explained in this standard framework, right? The monetary policy just change the AD curve, up or down. Okay? And in the short run, it moves along left or right, long run go down. So this is how the classical model would think. In the long run means that Federal Reserve has no role in the economy. Printing money would just think that you go into different level of the price, right? But in the short run, he moved around with an impact on the economy. That explains what you see the Federal Reserve was doing, right? When the economy is bad, right, they would just increase the money supply, right? Boost the economy, kind of, right? So that is the idea. Okay? And in this model, it's called the demand shock, which means that initially we're at A, we're A here, okay? And suppose that people suddenly have a very optimistic, they want more good, okay? And that means that the demand goes up from AD1 become AD2, okay? And the short run, it will go from A to B. All right? So you increase the demand, okay? So the GDP goes up for a short while, but in the long run, you go back to C, okay? So in the short run, if people become optimistic, it will boost the economy in this way, right? The economy is overheat, right? People want to invest, and they jump up here and jump down, right? And that means that the economy actually fluctuates a lot, right? And that's the reason why the Federal Reserve want to avoid, right? When the economy is heat up, it would, like this, it's like roller coaster, right? So that's why when the economy actually booms up, right? the Federal Reserve will want to increase the interest rate, right? Or reduce the money supply, try to move this back quickly rather than let them go this cycle, right? So that's why the intervention is like in this way, right? Because of economy go in this roller coaster, right? Right? Just go in this way, right? It's not very ideal, right? Because the price level goes up, right? In order to control the inflation, he want to print money so that don't want this AD one shift so fast, shift inside. Is that clear? So let me repeat the story because I think this is a very important idea, right? We're in A, okay? Now suddenly people become very optimistic. They do a lot of investment, a lot of consumption. They go to B, okay? In the short run. Output increase, everything look nice. And then, but in the long run, they go to C, right? That means that there's inflation, which Federal Reserve doesn't like, right? Federal Reserve like increased output, that's okay, but they don't like inflation. So what we're going to do is try to deter this by printing money, right? Such that this AD doesn't shift that much, right? In that case, the inflation is controlled within his ideal point, right? That's why the Federal Reserve, the central bank, do in this way, right? This thing, everything can be explained very nicely in this model. Okay. And another case is look at there's a supply shock, which means that suddenly people, there are many firms that enter the market, right? That makes the price going up, okay? Beating up all the price. And you jump from A to B, right? Actually B here, okay? But in the long run, okay? Right? Everything in this one, everything become more expensive, you're less output, right? Supply shock there, right? You can imagine this as a oil become more expensive, right? Or that war in the I don't know, the Gulf Coast, right? Everything become more expensive, right? It's B here, less output. But in the long run, you adjust to this one, go back, right? So that would be the model. Okay, and you can ask ourselves, okay, what happened when we have demand shock, we have supply shock for COVID? Is it demand shock or supply shock? You can apply this to the Chinese economy or Hong Kong economy or any economy in the world. Ask ourselves, is it demand shock or supply shock or both? Okay, what happened to the interest rate? What happened to the output? What happened to the price level? All these things can be answered. Okay. Lastly, I only have 2 minutes, but I try to see if I can borrow a few minutes before I end. But at least I want to talk about the solo model. I guess I don't have time to talk about the detail, so I give you the final equation. Okay? So let me motivate what we are doing for the solo model. I don't have time, but I will give you the final conclusion because the derivatives are just all math. So I can basically, if I skip, I don't think I would miss much. Okay? But the idea of this economic growth, the solo model, is how can we explain why some country go very fast, some country go very slow, right? Why the Western economy goes so fast, why the economy in the Africa remains so low, right? Why the economy actually explode after 16th century, after Industrial Revolution, right? Because we know before Industrial Revolution, the economy of the human history basically almost nothing, right? You look at the history of the Ming Dynasty or Qing Dynasty, people is not different from the Han Dynasty or Zhou Dynasty, right? About 2,000 years, people living doesn't change. But suddenly, the thing changed a lot, right? And I want to explain why, right? And is it because of population is more, with more natural resources, with technology breakthrough, or we simply accumulate more capital and also or R&D? Okay? So, what, I don't want to go to the model because I don't have time. So, so I don't want to go to this, but I want to give you the main conclusion here. Okay? So I tell you the answer. So the answer is the following. The solo model simply means this: no. Okay? Solo model basically said accumulation of capital or labor does not imply more growth. Okay? That is his central conclusion of that paper. And that means that it contrasts with what we said, the four tiger story, right? We said Hong Kong, Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore, they grow because of many capital and labor go into this area, right? And we know FDI actually boosts, right? And what solo model at the end we said is no. Before you go to the steady state, hundreds later, capital accumulation, having more capital, having more labor, actually help you to have more output as an economy in total. Okay? But per person, it's not. So accumulating capital and labor only help as aggregate. Okay? Say having more labor is not make a country more richer in total. It is in total, but it's not in aggregate. So that's why it explains why Deng Xiaoping talked about one-child policy, right? That is contrast with Mao, who said 人多好办事, right? More people, more output. Of course, more people have more output, that's true. But that is not growth. It's growth in aggregate, right? No matter how you big, how they may grow, right? You divide by 1.4 billion is nothing, right? So that's the idea. What Solo said, right? In aggregate, it grows, right? More people, more output, true. But on average, it's not. So accumulation of the labor is not going to change. Okay? So that means that the new understanding of why economic growth is because R&D. Actually, that explains why after Industrial Revolution, economic growth, right? Anywhere we have good technology, you have growth. Place with no technology, no growth, right? So you look at the case of Qing Dynasty, right? When they start to close the door, right? Don't trade with other. The technology or economy shrinks, right? When they open economy, they start to trade, right? The economy expand. Okay, that is R&D is very important. Just one equation I want to emphasize is this one. Okay, I don't have time, but I think this equation is the central equation for the Solo model, which I think is worth emphasize. Okay. Of course, if I say Solo model is, I just don't cover in detail, so I'm not expected to ask you Solo model for the quiz, for the exam. Okay. So, not the detail, the thing I cover, only the slide I cover. Okay, basically this slide. Okay. The Solo model is this slide, right? So if I ask only this slide, okay. The thing I skip is not included. The skip I skip, right? So, Solo model, we said the following. The GDP growth is decomposed in three parts. One is how technology growth The other one is, there's a typo here. Okay. How the capital growth, how the labor growth, okay? And this growth rate depends on the capital share adjusted by labor share, right? So because if your country depends on a lot of capital, right? So the weighting will be higher, right? Depend on labor, it's just the weighted average, right? So you can see in this one, we will see how the growth of the country, the GDP, depend crucially on three things, right? How technology grows so fast, how you attract the capital, how you attract the labor, right? Of course, this depends on how much capital labor used in the economy, right? So if you want to guess what happened is the GDP growth in, say, China or US, right? Say, suppose US, right? GDP growth of US, how can we say, right? Because growth of GDP, why we care about that? Because the growth of GDP, predict this guy, right? And this guy, M and X, okay? And this one is depend on how fast the economy, the technology is growing, right? The R&D, right? Usually look at how people measure R&D, right? This R&D improve this guy. And capital growth, right? Look at the FDI, how people spend money, right? How fast you can spend, right? How much can US spend more money on capital? How much, what's the limit? What's the sky? Labor, right? How the labor goes, right? Many illegal immigrant or undocumented immigrant, right? Coming from southern border of Texas, right? So US, this will go crazy, right? Capital also go crazy because so many money go to US, right? And productivity, I think you agree that R&D in US is crazy as well, right? So you expect people would now say, oh, US will go to explode, but if you say US is going to explode, you have to come up with the idea why this is shrinking, right? If you tell me some story, which one is shrinking, right? I can accept your conclusion, US will explode, okay? Or you think China is exploding or going up or going down, you have to tell me which one is not going, right? Is it going to go, can China keep 5% GDP growth, okay? To tell me whether this is going to grow, right? Because one of the big problems for Chinese economy is the labor rate is negative. The GL is negative, right? And GK is in fact also negative, right? Look at the FDI. Actually, it's 1/6 of the last year, right? And productivity also an issue because of the embargo imposed by the US and its ally, right? So we can't get the chips, we can't get technology, and how fast we can go, I'm not so sure, right? So even this, I mean, if you say GDP have to be 5%, give me some reason, right? I mean, that's the thing. Okay. Is there any question? Yeah.
Previous slide said that the conclusion of Solomon gap is not related to the labor and capital accumulation. So why this part?
In the very long run, look at in the thousands years later, that doesn't depend on that. Because in the long, okay, put it this way, in the long run, capital is not going to grow. Labor is going to grow because they're fixed. In the future, in the long run, they're zero, right? And there's no technology, that's why everything is zero. You can have growth only if you think labor is growing in some big good sense, right? But in the very long equilibrium, you cannot grow anymore. But you can explain this as more like a short run thing. So Solomon model would say, in the very long run, okay, our capital doesn't change anything. Because in the long run, these things are fixed. Only this matter.
So actually, this is the general formula. In the long run, the GK and the GL should be zero.
Yeah, because capital, you can't really, you can't make something out of thin air in the long run.
So this is the real capital, not the nominal capital.
Yeah, it's real capital, yeah, capital, yeah. So in the long run, very long run, capital labor is not going to change, right? It is the R&D matter. But when you before the long run, we talk about short run, right? Talk about next year the GDP growth. Depends on how capital, right? Because in the short run, in the economy, look at say China or US, right? In the whole world, the K may be fixed, but people may come to do FDI, or people go out and go in, right? The K can change. And labor, right? The whole world, the labor more or less may be fixed, right? But people can immigrate in or out, or having more baby, right? Suddenly people want to have more baby, right? But in the long run, this is very long run, right? Look at 1,000 years later. These things are not important. So in the scale, that's why I explain why in the history of 1,000 years, right? That's why these are not very important, right? And once the GDP, once the R&D grows and industrial revolution, this thing kick off. So that's the model. I hope I answered your question. So, any more question? I'm sorry, overrun. I hope that's fine because only my last lecture, so overrun a little bit. I hope you would forgive me. So, thank you. I'm done. So, I will see you. Happy Chinese New Year. I will see you over there.